For one so small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm.
Was it alone?
This bond between us can't be broken.
There are no others.
I will be here, don't you cry.
I said he could stay. That doesn't make him my son.
Tell me I'm not looking at the hairless wonder.
I'll handle this guy.
That one hurt him.
Are you sure this water's sanitary?
In learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn. You'll find your place beside the ones you love.
I was saved by a flying wild man in a loincloth. No, get off, get off, get off!
Son of man's a man for all to see.
Well, howdy, folks. Wrapping up the Disney Renaissance Marathon with Tarzan. This was released in 1999. It was the last film in the Disney Renaissance canon. However, Disney would not stop animating movies. They would continue on. What the Disney Renaissance is a period in which Disney produced the best material that they could have ever produced. It's considered one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of Hollywood, believe it or not. Because, well, I've already explained this, and so right now we're on the last film. And this would go into the post-Renaissance films, which consisted of Fantasia 2000, Home on the Range, you know, films that just didn't live up to what this was. Well, this is Tarzan, the last of the period, the great period of the Disney Renaissance. Of course, there are other great periods in the canon of Disney animated features. We know the story. This is based on Tarzan of the Apes book, written. I'm not quite sure what the date was, but it was, you know, it's a legendary book. The story, of course, revolves around Tarzan, who is a human child being raised by apes because his parents were murdered by a killer or a predator in the jungle. This is an interesting thing that took place with this particular film, because we know that Disney doesn't do a faithful adaptation of books or history or anything like that. They develop it as their own thing. And Whether there was a real Tarzan, we don't know. But obviously, it was based on a book. And of course, there have been other adaptations of Tarzan throughout the years, ever since movies were being made. Tarzan has been a character and a subject that people just love to retell, and well, this was Disney's take on that. Fairly popular film at the time, with a $130 million budget, and it grossed $448.2 million worldwide. So the budget was a little high, but they expected a little bit bigger number. Again, $448.2 million. And again, it's probably one of my personal favorites, actually. And you know, it's a wonderful movie. Now, the interesting thing was, this was animated in 2 different countries. They call this Disney refers to this as a bi-country movie, because it was, the main animation was done here in the United States at the animation studios in Burbank, while Glenn Keane was supervising a team of animators over in Paris. Matter of fact, Glenn Keane, who I mentioned, has animated Ariel and, several other, The Beast, and, you name it, pretty much throughout the Disney Renaissance, he has animated. Pocahontas, he didn't do Hercules. That was actually the guy who does most of the villains that did Hercules. But anyway, back to Tarzan. Yeah, one portion was animated in Burbank, the main animation studio, and in Paris. They were doing that in the previous 2 movies, but they were just going back and forth between Burbank and the Orlando animation studios, while this one actually went overseas to be animated. So, just a little information here. With the cast, again, we have well-known people from TV and the big screen coming to provide the voices for the characters. We have Tony Goldwyn as Tarzan, as adult Tarzan. You may know Tony Goldwyn from Ghost, being the baddie Carl that has Patrick Swayze killed. But in here, he's Tarzan. The young Tarzan is provided by Alex D. Linz. He would go on to star in the film Max Keeble's Big Move for Disney. He was also the kid that was much hated for replacing Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone 3. Yeah. And we have Minnie Driver as Jane Porter. Glenn Close as Kala, Tarzan's adopted mother. Lance Hendrickson from Aliens, be Kerchak, the mate, Kala's mate and ruler of the gorilla troop. Brian Blessed, British actor Brian Blessed as Cecil Clayton. Of course, they drew influence on his character from Clark Gable. Nigel Hawthorne. This is actually the second time he has done a voiceover for a Disney animated film. The first one that I know of, right off the top of my head, is The Black Cauldron. He may have done others, but didn't look that up. TV personality and actress Rosie O'Donnell is Turk, short for Turkina. A feminization of Turk-Oz, which in the book, this character is in the book, but it's a male gorilla. But for the movie, for Disney's adaptation, they changed it to a tomboy-like female gorilla. And we have Wayne Knight as Tantor. Wayne Knight, the guy that steals all the embryos in Jurassic Park. But you would know him on television as Newman from Seinfeld. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the cast that we have there. An interesting thing, this is also a musical, like the previous entries. But however, there's one little difference. You know how Elton John did, he wrote the songs for The Lion King, but those songs were configured into the characters, and the characters would sing those songs. In Tarzan, that is not the case. Instead, we are treated to, I gotta grab the CD here. We are treated to at least 5 songs by Phil Collins. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. This actually kind of made me a Phil Collins fan. But it's an interesting take that they would not let the... There's only one let me see. There are only 2 characters. 2 characters. I corrected myself. 2 characters that actually sing songs in the film. One is the mother singing You'll Be in My Heart with a little help from Phil Collins. And then we have Trash in the Camp performed by Rosie O'Donnell. Well, the rest of the songs is freaking Phil Collins. And, but I will say that the songs are memorable. They blend with the film very, very well. Matter of fact, the big single off of this album was You'll Be in My Heart. And that gets played at graduations and baby ceremonies, weddings, and oh, you name it, it gets played. I really enjoyed the song. I still enjoyed the song. Matter of fact, somebody years ago on YouTube, back before YouTube was concerned about copyright policy, somebody had taken the song You'll Be in My Heart and cut it to the movie E.T. and it blended excellent. They did a really fine job with editing the movie to put to that song, to create like a music video. It was really, really good, but it was taken down because YouTube got really hefty on the copyright infringement, which you can still copy stuff off of YouTube. You guys, just be hypocritical. Quit being hypocritical. I mean, if you're so conscious, why don't you just block that stuff? But that's a whole nother discussion. Another thing about the music, we have a Lion King alumni returning to do music for Tarzan, and that would be Mark Mancina. Now, Mark Mancina was the actual conductor of the music on The Lion King. Hans Zimmer composed the music, but Mark Mancina would be the one conducting. He was the one on the floor in the studio waving a baton to the musicians. Not all composers conduct their music. I know Danny Elfman doesn't do it. James Newton Howard doesn't do it. Hans Zimmer doesn't do it. And there's several others. They don't, and Michael Giacchino, they do not conduct. They write the music, but they don't conduct it. While people like John Williams, James Horner did, Elmer Bernstein did, and several other people. Matter of fact, Mark Mancina he was the conductor of The Lion King, but in this has his original score written for Tarzan. Matter of fact, it was right after The Lion King that Mark Mancina would actually go on to become a composer for films. the first big film I know that he was a composer on was Twister. You know, Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, you know. That was one of the first big movies that I know he composed the score for. But yeah, Tarzan. It's one of my personal favorites, to be honest with you. And it's also probably one of the first, if not, I can't think of any of the other films in the Disney Renaissance that have two villains. You know, you think about it, this one really has two villains. While in the other films, it's usually a villain, one villain, and his minions or his sidekick or whatever. But yeah, this one has two villains. It has Tarzan and his Tarzan's parents, and the adoptive mother's baby gorilla was killed by a leopard. And they gave I forget what the name of the leopard was, but was killed by a leopard, a predatory cat. He was killed by a leopard, and then you have the human villain being in the form of Clayton, who's this. At first, I thought he was probably a poacher, but he's not a poacher. A poacher will kill anything. Will kill anything that he's willing to make money off the black market with. While Clayton is a game hunter. He's not going to kill something illegally. See, a big game hunter will actually go within the means of legal documentation for a kill. He will not go outside that, as opposed to a poacher who is killing animals illegally. So, yeah, but Clayton is a big game hunter, and of course there is a love story between Tarzan and Jane, and it wouldn't be Tarzan if you didn't have Jane. Come on, that's one of the rules in the book. You gotta have a Jane to every Tarzan. You know, it's and that is a really good love story. How at first when she sees him, she's quite frightened of him, and then she realizes he was raised in the jungle. He was raised by apes, and how incredibly strong and fascinating he is. And yeah, it actually is one of my, and I've beat this to death. It is one of my favorite in the Renaissance movies. I would have to, if I was to rank, of course now the Renaissance is over. I'm actually going to post a link in the description about a review I did a few years ago about the Disney Renaissance. There is actually a documentary film. If you can get your hands on this, go on Amazon, whatever you do to need to get your hands on this DVD, because I think it's only available on DVD. It's a film called Waking Sleeping Beauty. And it was directed by, let me pull the DVD out here in a second. See, here's the cover to it. It is directed by Don Hahn, who was producer of many of the Disney Renaissance films. I couldn't tell you which ones that he produced. He didn't produce all of them, but he was quite noted within within that team, and it's also produced by Peter Schneider and Don Hahn, because this is a story that they desperately wanted to tell. There's also there's even more features that they talk about on the bonus content. Yeah, I'm going to put that in front of Tarzan because I'm going to talk about that right now. This was basically a documentary about, at the end of the Bronze Age, or the Dark Age, and entering into the Renaissance Age. It actually ends, the story of this documentary ends after the release of The Lion King. So it goes from, it tells about a decade. Yeah, from 1984 to 1994. And here's the tagline. From 1984 to 1994, a perfect storm of people and circumstances changed the face of animation forever. And they literally did. Because they ended up making some of the biggest, highest grossing animated films of all time. As a matter of fact, that's now why we see Best Animated Film at the Oscars. And even a few movies have been nominated for Best Picture. Yeah, so it's a great documentary. I do hope you get your hands on it. Again, I will post my review of it down in the description, which talks about some of the struggles that they had to go through to get it to what the Disney Renaissance would be. And it meant firing some people who were very, very loyal to the company. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say for right now. But yeah, that concludes the Disney Renaissance. If you, one of the few people that do actually watch these videos, post in the comments what your favorite film out of this whole marathon is. I mean, is it The Lion King? Is it Tarzan? Is it The Little Mermaid? Is it, whatever. I want to hear back from you. What was your favorite film of the Renaissance? And then you could go on to, maybe go on to some further discussions, because I'll be honest, in the Dark/Bronze Age, there are a few of those films I do like as well. Matter of fact, the first movie I ever owned on VHS in terms of was an animated Walt Disney film, Robin Hood. I got it for my birthday one year. My babysitter bought it for me for my birthday. And I've always enjoyed that film. And it's one of the earlier ones in the Bronze Age, but it was, I've always enjoyed Robin Hood. I've always enjoyed Oliver and Company. Even though you go back and look at Oliver and Company, I do have this criticism. I still like that movie, but the problem is with Oliver and Company, it is dated badly. It is a product of 1988. Yes, if you look at the way it's animated, some of the product placement that is in the film, it still exists today, but mostly it's the logos and the style of music. I doubt that if they were going to make that film today, I doubt they would use Billy Joel or Ruth Pointer or Huey Lewis, who were big musicians at the time. And that's kind of what they wanted to go for in that film. Yeah. So, I'll leave it up to you. Again, do post something in the comments what you think about the Disney Renaissance. Or what are some of your favorite Disney films? I shall say that. So from me to you, see you later.